Hey everyone, George here, the Disney family man. Hello, how do you doing? What's going on? Today I have my good friend with me, OrangeGrove55, to talk about some different things going on with the parks. I know a lot of the times, you guys are waiting for the anticipation of when's Disneyland going to open? Do we have a release date? Well, sadly, we don't. We're still waiting to hear it from ourselves, but whenever we get the notification, you'll definitely know. So thanks for joining me.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, George. It's always a pleasure coming on the channel. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to have you on. So I thought today that we'll have a discussion just like of how the parks evolve and change with time because of how the parks are now, the way that we love them is not exactly how they started out. And it may surprise some people of how things used to start out. Superstar limo.
Yeah. The good old superstar limo.
Yeah. So I thought, so I thought it would be a great topic, being that we're waiting in the wings to hear some more news coming out from Disney. So I thought it'd be a great topic to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be fun.
So I think the pinnacle park for this topic is Disney California Adventure because it made so many changes, and I still even think till now Disney still really doesn't know where they want to go with this park. It's like the little park that could, it has so
Yeah.
much potential, but it's like it's still trying to find its identity with the like along with the other parks. What do you think?
Yeah. I think they are. I think you're right. I think they are still trying to find the park's identity. But I think they're closer now than they've ever been. I think that like Disney okay, California Adventure, I've always believed when they made California Adventure in 2001, they made a mistake. Not in building the park and not even the California theme, but trying to replicate the state of California. When you try to create a realistic version of California, it's going to fall flat. You're never going to be able to create a body of water that's going to compete with the real Pacific Ocean. Not going to happen. You're not going to be able to even, compete with the real Hollywood studios, the studio tours and all that good stuff in Hollywood. You're not going to be able to compete with that. So that's where they kind of missed the mark, is that they sort of set themselves up for failure, right? Because it always fell short of the real thing, which was only 20 minutes from Disneyland. The beach is 25 minutes. The studios are maybe like 45 to an hour. But like, why would you go to this like light version of these places when you can go to the real version somewhere else? So when Disney redid California Adventure in 2012, they were smart in that they didn't go with trying to duplicate the state. What they did was they gave you the California theme, but it's kind of seen through this Disney lens, so to speak. So it's still California, but instead of trying to replicate Los Angeles, they're giving you a Los Angeles that is more connected to Disney history, Walt Disney specifically, right? With Buena Vista Street. They're still doing Route 66, which is still very California, and car culture, which is still very California. But instead of giving you this realistic portrayal of Route 66, they're going to give you Disney's version of it, which is Pixar Cars. And even Pixar Pier is kind of that same idea. It's a seaside pier, which is very California, but they're not giving you a replica of Santa Monica Pier. They're not trying to duplicate anything here. They're giving you the idea of a pier, seaside pier, and they're having you see this place through Disney colored glasses with the Pixar characters. So I think that's the direction now. And they're gonna polish it up and fine tune it as time goes on. But that's the direction. They want the park to be California, but they want the Disney characters, the Disney franchises to sort of tell that California story, if that makes sense.
Yes, most definitely. Because I remember the first time I saw, uh, at the time when it was Paradise Pier, and I'm thinking, you know, I get the idea of the theming behind because it's about for the state of California, and California has a lot of like those seaside pier parks and everything and boardwalks and stuff. But now that especially when they added World of Color, I can't see World of Color anywhere else but now Pixar Pier. Like it would only fit perfect with the pier setting to me.
Right.
Like if you were to put it like in an amphitheater, like how they do Phantasmic at Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, I can't foresee it. You know, going
No.
into an amphitheater to see World of Color. World of Color was made for, at the time, Paradise Pier, now Pixar Pier.
Yeah, no, completely. And to kind of digress a little bit, you brought up a great point, and this is one of the things that I actually really like about the California parks in terms of nighttime shows. Both Phantasmic at Disneyland and World of Color at DCA, they feel very organic. And what I mean by that is, you know, they take place in areas that you visit like during the day. So you go to Tom Sawyer Island during the day. You go along, you know, New Orleans Square. You walk around. You enjoy that section of the park, and then it explodes at night with Phantasmic. It's very organic. It feels like it's happening in the park. There's no sound stage or set. It's just it just happens. The magic just happens. And I feel kind of the same way with World of Color. It's that same feeling, like you enjoy the pier all day long, and then organically it just sort of erupts into this magical, you know, feast for the eyes at night. And there's no bleachers really. There's no like, you know, stage. It's very, very much they're just using the existing park as the stage, so to speak. And I think that just creates an organic feel. I really love that about those two parks, you know?
Absolutely, especially because even if you're not stopping to literally watch the show, or you made time in your day to watch the show, you could just be passing and the show's going on. You may not be really fully focused on it, but you can hear the music. You can see glimpses of the show as it's going on while you're maybe going to an attraction or what have you. Or it it's intertwined, as you said, it intertwines with your day-to-day activity while walking through Disneyland and Disney California Adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely has a very organic feel to it. And I love that. I really, really love that. And it's especially the case with Phantasmic, I think, even more so than DCA. But I just love that how it just like out of nowhere, Mickey comes in and it's like the park is the stage. The park is the stage. It's awesome.
Definitely. I completely agree. And I love, don't get me wrong, I still love Phantasmic regardless, but if you had to ask me to pick and choose, I would take Disneyland's Phantasmic over Walt Disney World's any day.
Wow. Now I haven't personally seen Walt Disney World's. I've seen it online, but that's probably a much different experience. And I know how the, you know, the setup and everything, but I've never actually seen it in person.
If you saw it in person, you would definitely agree. You'd say, yeah, I'll stick with Disneyland. So, um, still staying on the concept for DCA, as of right now, Disneyland is still kind of running out of space, you know, to put things. And, you know, other than the Avengers Campus that's going to be coming out, what other type of area that Disney can utilize to expand? Do you think, as far as like with the DCA 2.0, do you think as far as that goes, that's over and they'll just have to do small things? Like, what is more, what do you see more coming into the future for DCA that Disney can still have an opportunity to utilize?
Well, I think there's been rumors of a black box attraction, which is coming supposedly. Now this is pre-COVID, so things could be canceled or changed. I don't know, but there was rumors of a black box attraction coming to DCA that would basically be an attraction that can be changed out, swapped out within a fairly reasonable amount of time. So for 2 years, it could be a Doctor Strange ride. Then they can swap them out, and it can be an Ant-Man ride. They can swap it out, and then it can be, you know, a Mulan ride or something. You know, so it can kind of change with what they want to do. I think something like that will come to DCA because that will create, you know, it can keep things fresh. You know what I'm saying, through the years. That's coming. DCA right now has actually not a whole lot of room to work with, but there's a lot of areas that need a lot of work where they can kind of grow. Hollywoodland is a big chunk of the park, and pretty much everything in Hollywoodland is expendable. I mean, there's a lot of room in Hollywoodland. They could build probably 2 or 3 different attractions, varying sizes, in Hollywoodland. So I think that's the near future. I think Hollywoodland is where they're going to go after Avengers Campus. Also, that whole area with the Paradise Grill area, the outdoor eating with
Where like
music.
the Paradise Gardens is.
Paradise Gardens, yeah, and then the Goofy Sky School. That whole back area, I think, is expendable. I love the food at Paradise Gardens. They have like these Mediterranean kebabs, which I absolutely love, love, love. But I think that, at the end of the day, if they needed to build a dark ride or something there, they probably could fit something. Maybe like a smaller dark ride, maybe like a Coco attraction. That would be kind of cool. And actually, and this might be unpopular, but I would actually be okay with them completely ditching the pier theme and swapping it out for something that's more keep in line with something very seaside, but maybe a little more themed. Maybe something more that you see like at Disney Sea, where it's still, themed to like an oceanside setting, but maybe not like a carnival sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? I would be open for them doing that. Now, I don't know how well that will go over with the fans, because I know people love the Incredicoaster and all that stuff. And it is, like you mentioned, a beautiful backdrop for the World of Color. But I think, if they needed to, I think they can go in there and definitely do that, So I think those are some options for DCA, at least for the next 10 or 15 years. And then going beyond that, they're going to have to probably build a third park if they want any major expansion. And I think that they can put that in the in the current Toy Story parking lot. I mean, that parking lot, I think, is like 100 acres or something. It's a pretty sizable property. It's right adjacent.
The third park.
Yeah, that they could definitely put a third park there. There's definitely enough room to start something pretty big there if they wanted to.
Now, there is something that you just said, and I actually am very surprised that they didn't do this, is when you mentioned a Coco ride or a Coco attraction.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't use Coco for the start of the transition from Paradise Pier to Pixar Pier. Because if you want to keep with the California theme, a lot of Mexican, Latino, Hispanic culture is big out in California. So for me, I would have thought like right away that they would have utilized Coco right away when transitioning Paradise Pier into Pixar Pier.
Yeah, I am too, actually. I'm really, really surprised. And maybe that's why I believe there's a Coco show or something they do periodically in that area with the Paradise Gardens. The whole area tends to have a lot of Coco stuff, not attractions, but, temporary kind of show things.
Yeah, just things that are like there. You don't really like focus on it, but they're just there.
Yeah, so maybe they're sort of testing the waters a little bit to see how Coco performs in that little back area, because maybe they're thinking about that. I don't know, but that might be something they're kind of playing with to kind of see. So hopefully, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, Coco is perfect for California Adventure with the Mexican culture, which is very much tied to California, and the fact that it's Pixar, which fits perfectly with Pixar Pier. It fits exactly what we were talking about earlier, where it's California, but with that Disney slant to it, Yeah, I hope they do. Maybe they will. We'll see.
Yeah. Now, kind of going back into the past, before DCA is what it's now, there was no Buena Vista Street, there was no Cars Land, there was no Pixar Pier. It was Paradise Pier, but not Pixar Pier. The original 1.0, and that's exactly what DCA was at the time. It was 1.0. That yeah. What is what were the original lands as far as like with DCA? Because I was never at California Adventure when it first opened. I got to see it when it was the transitioning of into 2.0. Cars Land and Buena Vista Street were just being built when I got to experience it. So my first experience of going into DCA was when all the walls were up, when we had to walk through this little this little walkway that's like a 2x4.
That's funny.
So, but yeah, that was my first experience with DCA. But what was the original like before the 2.0?
Okay, so the entrance to the park, I absolutely hated the original entrance with the, I know you've seen the California letters. A lot of people love them. I never felt they worked. I felt like it looked very cheap. They were going for a postcard thing, but it never pulled it off for me. But then once you got into the actual park, it was the Sunshine Plaza. And it was just kind of like a bunch of like, it kind of felt like the main drag, the main strip, which is now Buena Vista Street. It felt very much like City Walk. Big logos on the signage, bright colors everywhere. It wasn't really, it was okay. It would have been fine for like a shopping center or something, like a City Walk or downtown Disney, but for the entrance to a Disney park, it really wasn't that impressive. And then when you got to like where the Carthay Circle is now, they had this big metal like sun. And I don't know if you've seen that.
I think I remember. It's a thing that looks like an oversized brooch.
Yes, exactly. And that was where Carthay is now. It's a big sun sculpture, and they had like a little fountain underneath it, right? So that was the entry. That's what Buena Vista Street replaced, which was a huge upgrade. I mean, massive upgrade. Hollywoodland hasn't changed much. I mean, they've tweaked it a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. I think when it first opened, it was Hollywood Pictures backlot. Because at the time, Disney owned Hollywood Pictures. I think since then they've closed that studio down, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so Hollywood Pictures, it was called Hollywood Pictures Backlot. Now it's Hollywood Land, but essentially it's kind of the same thing. The land hasn't changed all that much. Grizzly Peak area is pretty much the same. Where Soarin' is now, used to be Condor Flats.
But they don't call that Condor Flats anymore, do they?
They don't call it Condor Flats anymore. Now it's a part of Grizzly Peak.
Okay.
Before it was an aviation themed land, which was awesome. I love that idea of an aviation themed land, and it was like set in like the 1940s or something, I believe. But the problem is, it was so landlocked you could never do anything with it. It has so much potential, but there was nowhere to grow. So they made the right decision, just kind of engulfing it into Grizzly Peak. So that's what happened over there. Pixar Pier was Paradise Pier, as we all know. The Pacific Wharf, where you can get like the bread bowls and, the tortillas, the Ghirardelli chocolate, all that stuff hasn't really changed at all. I think they've changed out some of the restaurants and the offerings here and there. For the most part, that Pacific Wharf is pretty much the same still. Cars Land, it was parking lot. There was nothing. Cars Land was a Cars Land. So basically, Cars Land was just a parking lot. And actually that's where they used to do like the stunt shows for the ESPN X Game stuff.
Oh, okay.
Back in like the early 2000s. I remember watching, they would lead you back there, and there was all this dirt with these dirt hills, and these motorcycle guys would like launch over the hills. It was right there in Cars Land. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So that was where Cars Land is. And I mean, that's pretty much it.
A Bugs Land wasn't even part of the original, was it?
No, it wasn't, but it came pretty soon. I think because they were panicked because the attendance was so bad. But when it opened, no, Bugs Land wasn't there. And I think Bugs Land opened like in 2002 or 3. It's pretty soon thereafter that they opened Bugs Land. The park was pretty small when it first opened.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there still a little bit left of the parking lot beside Cars Land that they still can add a little more there? Because I thought I heard someone, like a Disneyland official, say that there's still a little bit more land left there because that's where they thought that they were going to expand for Avengers, but they decided to take out a Bugs Land instead.
Yeah, there's a chunk of land there where they were originally planned to put the Avengers e-ticket. So there still is a little bit of parking lot there behind. It sits behind Cars Land and behind Mission Breakout, like right there.
Okay.
And that's where the Avengers will go if we get it. That's where it'll go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now walking over to the OG park, um, you released a video for which I will release the link on top um, of this video for whoever's watching and listening, because it's a really good um, video that discusses about how Nemo's submarine voyage, which used to be the original submarine voyage minus Nemo, and how you talk about of how Fresh Baked was talking about how is it gonna go forth, like with everything that's happened and the shutdown and for the post COVID and everything. How are people going to react to an attraction like that, because you don't have your own submarine? You're like cram packed into one submarine with all these people, and it's like, how are people going to feel of that? And it takes up a lot of space. So, and then on top of that with the Autopia. So as far as like with the enhancement, do you feel that, as you had mentioned in your own video, that in time, sooner than later, you think that the submarine voyage and the Autopias are going to get on the chopping block?
I do. Because I think that they were kind of on the chopping block before COVID. And then now with COVID, like you mentioned, the submarines, no one's going to want to get in a submarine. And they can't really cut down the capacity on a submarine, on the submarine voyage, because the capacity is already really bad, even when they fill the submarine vehicles. If they were to cut that in half or something, the line would be like 4 hours long. I mean, it would be ridiculous. So yeah, I think it's days. I think it's like Dave was mentioning on Fresh Baked. He doesn't even think it's going to reopen again. And I kind of agree with him. I think they're going to leave it shut, because there were rumors that we're going to get a new Tomorrowland in a few years, and that Joe Rohde, he even was kind of hinting at that on the Disney Plus thing, the Imagineering story. So I think that there's already in the works a new Tomorrowland, and I think the subs and Autopia were not part of that plan, probably, in my opinion. So they're probably just going to not reopen it and just be like, you know what, we'll just address that space when it's time to.
Did Joe Rohde throw a hint? I mean, I know he was talking about it, but did he on the Imagineering story?
Yes, at the very end, I think it's the last episode where they're kind of talking about the future and the potential of Imagineering and what have you. There's a whole part where he is standing over the Disneyland Tomorrowland. And he's like standing over it like this, looking at it, and he took the Innovations building and moved it off the model and then put it back. He's like playing with the different elements of our Tomorrowland, switching them around as he's talking about the future of Imagineering. So it was heavily hinted at that that's part of the game plan, which is kind of cool. Now this is probably going to change now with COVID. It's probably delayed like crazy.
Now, here's the thing. From COVID, it probably delayed it, but I also think, along with everything else, I think in a sense it may have pushed it a little further, because as you and Dave had agreed upon to the notion of, the submarine voyage may not reopen back up. So eventually, as it was probably going to close, from the shutdown and everything, they probably said, you know what, if we were going to do this anyway, let's just do it now.
Right.
And I think people are so desperate to get back into Disneyland that they'll just take whatever is open and just, so
totally.
I don't really think too many people would miss the submarines in that sense, if they stay closed. And then that could kind of maybe be the startup of removing that, and possibly Autopia, because they were original attractions, from the 50s and everything, but that was a 50s attraction to say, oh, this is big for Tomorrowland. It's like, right. Now when you think of Tomorrowland with all the technology and everything, it's like, okay, it's the Autopia cars and submarines. It's like,
yeah,
how is this part of our future? It's already here.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. I think, look, I mean, the submarines were really a marvel when they opened in 1959. I was sad when they shut them down, I think in the mid to late 90s. I was glad to see them reopen again with a Nemo theme in I think it was like 2007. but I think that it's kind of, I don't want to say worn out its welcome because that sounds bad, but like its time has come. You know, I think it's time to kind of reinvent that space and see what else they can come up with. Now, I do say this though, whatever they do come up with for the submarine lagoon and Autopia, I think it has to be something aesthetically pleasing. I don't want to see like a lot of cement and stuff like that. If whatever they build there, I want to see it, a lot of natural beauty there too, because we're losing a lot of natural beauty. Well, natural, but
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
Disney.
With yeah, Disney natural. You know, losing the lagoon, we're losing that lagoon. You know, hypothetically, I'd like to see something replace it that has some natural beauty as well. You know, I don't want to just see a big square futuristic building. You know what I'm saying? I want it to be kind of tied
And especially because
together.
of Disneyland, because Disneyland has like when you're around like the landscape of the trees and the shrubbery, it gives you like that kind of like Central Park feel when
Yes.
you're around there with the benches and everything. So yeah, to walk into something and to have like just big slabs of cement and it's like opened and you have this building, it's like okay, it could have been the
Yeah.
execution could have been a little more better than that.
You know what actually would be a perfect segue from Tomorrowland into Fantasyland, and people would have an absolute fit though if they ever did this, and I'd be fine with it. But if they took the Pandora theme that they have in Animal Kingdom, and now obviously you couldn't have the same exact land because of size issues, you know what I'm saying? But you can still have the same general idea, maybe even floating mountains, giant waterfalls. Pandora would be a perfect segue because it is aesthetically pleasing. It's a natural beauty in a lot of ways, but it's also very technological. That would fit so beautifully right there. But I think people would have a fit because I think that they were already kind of having a fit with Galaxy's Edge being a franchise land. To add another franchise land, I don't know how fans would react to that. But I think
Yeah, I think
theme
people are
wise,
still trying to recover from Galaxy's Edge. I think if they were to add Pandora in there, they'd need some therapy.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I do agree with you though, because if you, I mean, I know you personally never went on the ride, but if you look at Flight of Passage, it's about the excuse me the wondrous nature of Pandora itself, but it takes you through this lab where it's they're transitioning you into the body of a banshee, into the body of an avatar, and to me that's technological for Tomorrowland. I think
Yeah,
that would actually fit in perfect. I
yeah.
As far as like the Navi River journey, you could probably intertwine that in there, but I mean as far as like Flight of Passage, that would actually work really well in Tomorrowland.
That would work very well. You could do Flight of Passage, have like sort of like a mini version of Pandora, obviously different layout, different design. You can maybe even omit the river journey because maybe obviously for space reasons, and just have Flight of Passage because it ties together, like you said, better anyway. But yeah, I think that would be a perfect segue from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland. It kind of straddles both. It kind of fits both. But I just don't know if they'll do that. I just feel like that would cause a lot of issues with the fandom.
Do you think that they would eventually maybe like cut that section in half and like the top half become the Fantasyland expansion and then the other part Tomorrowland? Because Tomorrowland's going to get a complete redo anyway. So I wonder if they're going to kind of like divide that land in half where you have like the submarines and like where the motorboats were, and then you have Autopia in two different sections.
They might do that. Absolutely. They might do that. Like they can put like a Frozen ride or something, just hypothetical, just throwing it out there, like a Frozen ride on the Fantasyland side, and they can do whatever they want on the Tomorrowland side with the subs and the Autopia. Yeah, definitely. They might split it up. Absolutely.
I if it was up to me, I'd say 86 the Autopia cars and put in Tron.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why. And Disneyland, like, and Tron is kind of it's malleable, like kind of like the like what I was talking about with Pandora. Like you don't have to have it an exact clone. Like, obviously we wouldn't be able to fit the version that you guys are getting in Florida here in California because of space reasons, but I'm sure they can design a track layout that would fit, and we have a massive building with that what is it now? I always forget. They changed like 100 times. The launch bay, I think it is, Star Wars launch bay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With that, you could probably fit the indoor portion in that giant building, and then you can have the Tron coaster kind of weave in and out of Tomorrowland, similar to how the People Mover used to do. It could feasibly work. I agree with you. I would love to have
I honestly think for a new Tomorrowland, it would be like creme de la creme, like cherry on top of the cake if they were to bring back a newer futuristic version of the People Mover.
I would love that, George. From your lips to God's ears, my friend.
Yeah.
And you know what? They could easily and bring back the corporate sponsorships, you know, like talk to companies like Apple or Tesla or whatever and see if they'll sponsor the attraction and really come up with a really cool ride system, you know, like get back into that, like that spirit of innovation and communicating with these American companies and trying to get things. I don't know, just like, I think that's what Walt Disney built his park on, was stuff like that, you know?
And
I'd love to see that.
Smart at that because as they mentioned in the Imagineering story, they had these big corporate companies pay Walt and his Imagineers to make these attractions. So essentially it was like nothing for them to incorporate that into Disney. It was like, It's a Small World, the Carousel of Progress, the People Mover, it was all basically bought and paid for him to use it in his parks.
Well, yeah. And you know, I don't know how it is in Florida, but I feel like the sponsorship stuff is sort of a dying thing out here in California. Like a lot of these sponsorships, like Indiana Jones Adventure used to be sponsored by AT&T. And now that sponsorship dropped off and now nobody does. Nobody sponsors it. Small World, a long time ago, years ago, was sponsored by Bank of America. Now it's nobody. There's a few sponsorship things here and there, like Tiki Room is obviously, I think, Dole, because they do the Dole whips. But I can't think of many attractions in Disneyland or DCA that still have corporate sponsorships. And I could be wrong. Comment below if you guys know some. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any really. I mean, I could think of the Dole Tiki Room situation, but outside of that, there just isn't a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, like as far as like with Walt Disney World, I think there's still like corporate sponsorships, but very far in between. I do know Test Track was, I believe it was Chevrolet. I don't know if it's still Chevrolet, and I think Rock and Roller Coaster was Haynes.
Oh wow, Haynes?
Yeah, because I think Haynes was on the guitar pick. Presented like on the front, like with the electric guitar out in the front. I think it was Haynes, and I think that's where again, yeah, comment below if I have those sponsorships correct. And because I spoke with an Imagineer when I did the dining with an Imagineer at Hollywood Studios, and that's where they had issues with Rock and Roller Coaster because I think it was Haynes that wanted to renew the contract to keep that attraction going because that was supposed to be an indoor family roller coaster for Monsters Inc. And
oh wow,
and the Imagineer confirmed it. They said they had the concept art, they had everything ready, and it just was put off because at the time they didn't have a corporate sponsor for that particular attraction.
Wow. I wish they would get into that again. I like that. It benefits obviously the company that's doing the sponsoring. It benefits Disney because it frees them up a little bit financially. And it's in the spirit of what Walt started. He wanted these companies to kind of all kind of join together and create these magnificent things together, sort of like cross-pollinate, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see that same spirit come back. And maybe it will now with COVID, now that Disney's like bleeding out. maybe they will. Maybe they're going to be forced to do that again.
Hey, you never know. I mean, Disney can, they can get on the good side of all these companies, and especially since they bought like half of them. So
that's true. They own like most of them anyway. Yeah.
But yeah. So I think it was. Yeah, I definitely think as far as like with the corporate sponsorships, they can. Didn't Honda was part of it.
Yeah. Honda sponsored, of all things, Honda sponsored our fireworks.
That's what it was. Yes, that's right. Because
such a weird.
They said, for remember, dreams come true. presented by Honda.
Yeah, yeah. That was our. I don't know if they still do this. I don't know if Honda is still the sponsor for the fireworks, but like I think maybe a decade or so ago, they were the ones. It's so weird. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
weird one.
And by the way, folks, that was my horrible impression of the Disneyland announcer. That's why I don't have that job. So now, kind of what you had brought up earlier, that you had mentioned Galaxy's Edge. Now, I think like everyone and their grandmother had a coronary, like when Disney announced that, okay, we're building them on both coasts, but
Yeah.
one's going in Hollywood Studios and the other is going in Disneyland Park. And everyone's like, yeah, wait a minute.
It's crazy. Yeah. Well, it was weird because I always thought like when the rumors were circulating around like a Star Wars land coming to Disneyland, I thought it was going to be something like either like an offshoot, like a side mini land of like Tomorrowland or something
I
like
thought
that.
that was going to be the future for Tomorrowland. I thought it was going to be all Star Wars and Avengers.
Right.
But now since
Right.
they both got their own lands, it's like, okay, well, what's left?
What's left exactly? And when they announced that it was going to be put behind the rivers of America, I was like, "What? This is going to be weird." But then it made sense, and the more they started to give more details, and like this is a new planet, it's like a rocky, foresty kind of looking planet, and all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I can see now why it's behind the rivers of America. That's a perfect transition. You're going to another planet. You're not going to like when I always thought of a Star Wars land, I always thought of like kind of like a Tomorrowland, like a Star Toursy kind of thing all the
Yeah,
way through, right?
yeah, because
But
that's what I thought. Because like in my head, I'm thinking, are they going to put this like right next to the castle? Like, what is this going
yeah,
to look like? And but yeah, I think like to seclude it, but still have it be part of the park was very smart, and especially through the entranceway as you pass into Frontierland when you have the giant rock work of Big Thunder. I mean,
yes.
it's a perfect transition.
It's a perfect transition, and the angle they went with that, where it was like it's not going to be this like weird Star Tours like airport feel. It was more like natural beauty, so to speak, with the petrified trees. There's going to be plants and there's rock work and all this beautiful. It really does segue perfectly from that frontier, the red rocks of Frontierland into Batu. It just, yeah, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I never would have came up with that. That's why I'm not an Imagineer.
Yeah, I mean,
Brilliant.
that was me. Like, I always thought like they would take iconic scenes and props from the movies, and it was like, okay, well, you can go to the Death Star over here, and then after that, you can go to Endor over here, and then like everything would just be so scattered. It's like you just walking into scenes from the movie, but rather than do that and be unrealistic, they wanted to create a vital, organic, real life place that would be part of the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely the smarter move. I know a lot of people wanted that, what you described, where you walk over and you go inside the Death Star, then you walk over here and you're visiting Tatooine. I would hate that. That would remind me of Star Wars version of Pixar Pier.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
You go from basically thing to thing, but they don't have any connection to each other. Like, oh, here's the Death Star. Oh, here's Tatooine. Oh, here's, I wouldn't want that. This is cool because now you have it's a live, living, breathing planet, and it's cohesive and it makes sense, and they can do what they want with it because it's their own planet. They're not tied down, and it just works so much better in my opinion.
That's why I personally think in time, and I get people can disagree with me. They may not like it. I don't even know how I would feel if this happens down the road, but I think eventually the pier, and as you mentioned earlier, I think eventually in time, as the future goes on, the pier is going to go bye-byes. I just,
Yeah,
some odd shape or form. I think they're just trying so hard to try to fit something in. And I think that's why they just threw in Pixar because it's relatable. Kids will understand it. It'll draw families in. But I think, it's basically just putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. You know,
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's so many things you can put on there that can still maintain a seaside vibe.
I
You know,
like that because with the ocean seaside, because right across the way you have Ariel's Undersea Adventure.
right,
So they could
exactly.
basically take, as you said, that seaside and just encompass around that whole area, and they could still do World of Color.
They can still do World of Color. And if you take a look at Tokyo Disney Sea, they do it flawlessly, very immersive, beautifully, where they're taking these settings, close to water and creating that harbor kind of feel, that pier feel, but done in a way that's very top notch. I want to see that come to California Adventure. I would love for them to get rid of Pixar Pier and put something that you could fit into Disney Sea, something along those lines. That's
Exactly.
right on the water. That's beautiful, fleshed out, gorgeous theming.
And I think it's funny that you mentioned that because when they were mentioning that on the Imagineering story, it's like we just completed working on Tokyo Disneyland and we're going through with Tokyo Disney Sea, and then here's Disney California Adventure, and it's like look at what the Japanese funding did for Disney, and then here's the America funding for DC, and it was like
Yeah,
comparison. And
yeah.
and I remember that they asked John Hench, what he thought when DCA first opened up. He said, "I would have rather preferred the parking lot."
Yeah, I mean the opening park was not that good, and that's why I think I appreciate this current version of DCA. A lot of people still hate on it or whatever, like but like it's so much better than what it was.
It's still its own park. I do
Yeah,
appreciate the fact that it stands alone, where it's not a replica
yeah.
of all the other parks. But yeah, definitely like compared to what I've heard it was.
Oh, it was bad. It was
Dude,
bad. It was really, really bad. It was really, really bad. Like if you Google DCA 1.0 and see what some of the areas look like. It was horrible. That you saw that giant pink dinosaur they used to have over on the where Goofy Sky School is right now. You ever see that?
I think I have seen, yeah.
There was some ugly stuff in DCA 1.0. And the Maliboomer, I know a lot of people love that ride. That thing was hideous. Hideous. I'm so glad they put some money into that thing. I'm so glad. Because even Pixar Pier, with all its faults, I'll still take 1,000 Pixar Piers over what we used to have any day of the week,
Yeah, definitely. And then especially with the addition of Buena Vista Street and Cars Land, I think Buena Vista Street and Cars Land are two of the best lands that Imagineering has ever created in any of the parks, aside like from Pandora and Galaxy's Edge, but just more of the realism. Because with Imagineer Kevin Rafferty, before they even incorporated with Cars, he wanted to do a car land just based off of like the traditional cars of like from the 50s and the 60s, and have like a dine-in drive-in theater type thing and everything. But then, as you said, when Disney and Pixar made Cars, they had a franchise storyline to go along. But I tell you, you walk into Cars Land, it's my favorite land
So good.
in DCA, and it's like I could just spend a whole day there and just walk around Route 66, and it literally makes you feel like you're walking in the scene of the movie. That's how dead on the Imagineers were with that.
Yeah, they were dead on. And Cars Land and Buena Vista Street are two prime examples of how Disney can take a California theme, add an IP to it, and have it fit flawlessly. And that's what I want to see more of, with DCA. Stuff like that, where it's like that seamless marriage between the two, where it's like, it's California. Route 66 is very, very California. Very, very California. But it has that Disney IP connection to kind of satisfy, the executives, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? And
And
Buena Vista Street is very California. It's an amalgamation of like all the sights and sounds you would hear in Los Angeles at that time, but it has that Disney, that Mickey, Oswald, Walt connection. It's perfect.
and I
It's
love
perfect.
how they have both of the parks where Main Street was like based off of Walt's childhood memory of
Yes.
growing up in Marceline, Missouri. But then you also have in its sister park the second part of his journey when he came with one suitcase and a dream over to California. and it's like there's the Carthay Circle Theater where they premiered Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and
It's
ooh,
perfect.
I get goosebumps just talking about it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's perfect bookends. Like you said, with Marceline and then his journey into Los Angeles. It's perfect. Whoever came up with that idea, I mean, they deserve the biggest raise ever. Like that was absolutely brilliant, you know?
They really do, because it fits in perfect. And it's, as you had mentioned before, with any Disney park, you need a grand entrance. You
Yes.
need an entrance to set the stage of saying, okay, this is what this park is all about. And Buena Vista Street is definitely no exception to that cause.
Yes, definitely. And you know, I hope that they take their lessons they learned from Buena Vista and Cars Land and apply that to Avengers Campus. I hope they're not just going to go and be like, okay, here's Marvel. I want them to really think about it. I don't need a huge California connection. I don't need the whole storyline to be based around California, but I really want there to be some sort of emphasis on the Avengers decided to build a training facility or a training campus, whatever, here in Southern California. And I want people to know when they're waiting in line for these queues and stuff like that, that why is it in this park? You know what I'm saying? And it's not that hard to do with Marvel because a lot of stuff happens in the MCU in California. Tony Stark was from Malibu. He had a house in Malibu. Black Panther, he was in was it Oakland? I believe
think it was Oakland.
Oakland. I mean, there's a lot of connective tissue. They just need to try just a little bit and they can do it, you know?
Now Avengers Campus, that was practically fully designed and built before the shutdown, correct? So they had everything laid out. So there would be no interruption of how the land would look because of the shutdown for like funding purposes.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I think because it was too far along. By the time March came around with the shutdown, we were already vertical on the construction.
Because they basically already had an opening of July 18th for the land.
Right. So they were only a couple months out of completion. So it was way too late to cancel it or do anything with it. It was what we got, what we're getting is exactly what they were planning before COVID.
And I do hope, I agree with you. I really hope that it is really like an immersive and experience. I know it's not going to be on Galaxy's Edge level, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just hope that they could bring the Marvel universe to life where we could actually walk into this land and not say, okay, well, this was, instead of it being, oh, this was thrown here, this was thrown here, this was thrown here, that everything is cohesive and it works they work off one another. Like the Spider-Man attraction works for the Doctor Strange Mystic Arts, and that works off of the Pym Gastropub, you know, thing. So, but because I do kind of worry with that, because with the Imagineers that actually worked on Cars Land, they went and worked on Toy Story Land down at Hollywood Studios. And don't get me wrong, I love Toy Story Land, I really do. But I mean, in comparison to Cars Land,
night and day.
It's night and day. Like you can, it's like, I know what they were trying to go for, like the feel of Andy's backyard. Well, to me, it doesn't feel like a backyard. It just feels like a big giant placement with all these toys everywhere. It's like, it doesn't have its, and then automatically with number 3 and 4, spoilers, people, just so you know, that Andy doesn't even own the toys anymore. They're owned by Bonnie, and Bonnie doesn't even have Woody anymore. He's on it.
Well, and you know, to me, it felt like, and again, full disclosure, I haven't been to Toy Story Land, but I've seen the videos, I've seen the pictures. I'm going off of that completely, but like, it just, for me, it feels like Bugs Land with a cool coaster. It's kind of what it feels like from watching it, you know?
It has that open, but the difference with a Bugs Land is you can kind of get away with it because it's bugs in their own natural habitat.
Right.
So you have that open green acres of, you know, like open land where I guess, again, that's maybe why they're trying to say, okay, it's like a backyard, you know?
Yeah.
But as I said, I do love Toy Story Land. I do. But I mean, apples to oranges in comparison to Cars Land, I don't think there's not one land, again, aside from Pandora, based off of an IP that fully immerses you into like you could take a picture like from the front entrance of Cars Land and put it right next to a still shot of the film, and you wouldn't even be able to tell any difference.
You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Yeah, the backdrop for Cars Land leading up to that street, it was so flawless. It was so
It was
flawless.
perfect. And even both entrances, like you can get like a completely different experience. Like if you enter on Route 66 and then down the street, or if you enter through the Rockwork Arch
Oh yeah.
with the waterfall as you view Ornament Valley. I mean,
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And back to Avengers Campus real quick. You're right. I don't think it's going to be as immersive as Galaxy's Edge, but I think that's partly not so much at the fault of the Imagineers or even Disney. I think it's mostly just because the franchise, like Marvel, Marvel isn't known for its fantastic worlds.
exactly.
It's known for its fantastic characters.
It's our world.
In
That's
our world,
yeah.
exactly. And it's Iron Man who's special. It's Thor. It's Captain America. It's these individuals who are the specialness of the franchise, not really the worlds. Where Star Wars has kind of like, there's countless planets and environments, and it's out of this world. So it's so much easier. It's like Pandora. It's so much easier to create that immersive environment based on something like that. With Marvel, what do? It's centered in New York, Los Angeles. There's not a whole lot to work with in terms of immersiveness.
As far as like with immersive, the only up to in my knowledge would be the only immersive type of land or world in the Marvel universe that would really work, that would be like a total escape into like the immersion, would be Wakanda.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. They could definitely do something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys will get something like that, because I don't think we have enough space out here for that.
Now, I think if they were to do like a straight Wakanda, that would probably go either, I would probably say Animal Kingdom, because they
Yeah.
would probably try to like integrate it into Africa. Oh, and speaking of Wakanda and everything, to Chadwick Boseman, love you, man. My heart and condolences go out to his family, and Wakanda forever.
Yes. Yes. Wakanda forever. Yeah. Chadwick, man, he was a genius. He was brilliant. And from what I understand, he was the nicest guy. Everyone that's ever met him said he's like the sweetest dude ever.
If you want to see a real life true superhero, that's him. I mean, he was awesome.
Yeah, it was shocking to hear that news. Last week
when I first saw that, I thought it was fake news. I thought,
yeah,
no, it can't be. And then usually I jump on Yahoo and it's like, okay, because a lot of times when I read stuff on Twitter and Facebook, it may not be real, and it's like, okay, it didn't come on Yahoo, so it can't be real.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, the article came up, and I was like, no.
Well, yeah, and I wonder, because I know he kept it secret to the public, but like when I met you at D23 last year, almost a year ago last year, and I got out of that studio panel, and in that studio panel, just last year, they announced the release date for Black Panther 2. So I'm like, maybe Disney didn't even know?
No, I think he told nobody. The director didn't even know. I mean, he was lost for words. Michael B. Jordan has no words. Like, everyone is just shocked of how he trained for that role, how he got fit for that role, how he acted in that role. I mean, he was T'Challa. And it was just like, with everything that was going on, it's like he pulled through it. Because it wasn't even just Black Panther. I mean, he did Civil War. He did Infinity War. He did Endgame. So it was like
unbelievable. All while having cancer. I mean, you know how terrible he must have felt, like having that disease, the fatigue and the weakness, and just feeling so crummy. And then to sit there and to be that physically active with all those MCU films, my God, he is a stronger man than I will ever be.
Yeah, definitely. And I really hope that if they do move forward with Black Panther 2, that they honor him with the respect of not replacing his character, but just like how they did in the comics, just pass it down to Shuri.
I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah, I agree with you. You can't replace them. It's like replacing Luke Skywalker or even like replacing Princess Leia. There was a lot of talk about after Carrie Fisher died, do you replace Leia? You just can't.
No.
You just can't. Maybe you can do a younger version of Leia, or maybe you can do a younger version of Black Panther, or recast for the younger version. But this character, you cannot have him in the next Avengers movie with another person playing him. That would be sacrilege. I'll boycott the movie. I won't watch it.
I wouldn't go see it. No.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't even feel it would even be part of the Marvel universe. It would just be like a standalone reboot.
Yeah, they need to figure a way to explain his disappearance in the upcoming movies and leave it at that. Pass it on to Shuri, who I love in Black Panther. She's like one of my favorite characters.
Yes.
Pass it on to her, but do not recast. I think Marvel, I think Kevin Feige, and I think they have enough sense to know that. I don't think they're going to do that. They would it would be met with such backlash you wouldn't even believe it.
Oh, definitely. That would you talk about woof.
That would be a nightmare. Now, I do want to ask you a little off topic. Did you see Mulan yet?
Not yet. I'm actually going to see it tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw it. I didn't know if you saw it, but I think you're going to enjoy it. I really liked it.
I was going to ask you what would you rate it as?
I'm not a big fan of the live action remakes. I've been very clear about that in a lot of my videos. I'm not a huge fan of them. But I've liked some of them, I really like this one.
Okay.
I really like Mulan. I like this one. I like Mulan, Cinderella, Jungle Book, and Aladdin, and that's pretty much it. This one ranks up there. It's very good. And the young lady who plays Mulan, and I'm so sorry I can't pronounce her name. I don't want to massacre her name, but she does a phenomenal actress. She is like the definitive Mulan. She was so good in this movie. I loved her. I want to see her in more movies. I hope Disney uses her for other stuff. Bring her in, like we were talking about the MCU, bring her into the MCU, have her do like a superhero thing. I want to see her do more because I thought she was really, really cool in this.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think you're going to have a good time.
Do you think it has like enough impact where it may be that successful of a movie where they can incorporate Mulan back into the parks?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's trending like numbers 2 or 3 on Disney Plus right now, which doesn't sound that great for something new, but considering there's a $29.99 paywall, trending to number 2 or 3 is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good because I mean, a lot of people were saying, oh, I'm not paying.
No one's gonna do it.
I'm not paying it. Well, if it's at 2 or 3, I mean, I think they're kind of giving into that.
They're giving into it. Yeah, I mean, I watched it with my girlfriend. We both really loved it, and my girlfriend is so picky when it comes to movies, like really picky. Like she was even like with Infinity War, she was like, eh. like she was not impressed at all. At all. She's so picky. With this one, she's like, yeah, it was a good movie. I was like, wow.
Okay, so for her to say it's a good movie, in your mind, she's saying, woohoo, that's a great movie.
She really liked it because there's been movies where I was like I was really impressed, and then she was like, meh, and she really liked Mulan. And I think, yeah, I agree with her. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really, really well done. Gorgeously shot movie. Great cast. Do you ever see the old Mortal Kombat movies from the 90s?
Yes.
One of the guys, oh man, I forgot who he played, but one of the actors from that movie is in this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the Mortal Kombat movie, so I'll as soon as I recognize him, I'll say, oh, okay, that's Liu Kang, or that's.
It was great. It was great.
Awesome. But kind of going back a little bit when we were talking about Black Panther, that the fans of, just of Chadwick, of Black Panther, of Marvel, of Disney, along with Whoopi Goldberg, went to Twitter and actually asked Disney for both Walt Disney World and Disneyland to make a Black Panther / Wakanda attraction or land in Chadwick's honor, for his memory. I mean, it's possible. I think anything could be possible with Disney that they could eventually make something.
I think they will. I mean, when it comes to this kind of stuff, Disney's very socially aware. It didn't take them very long to announce the Splash Mountain retheme, even though those plans have been on the books probably for a year or more. they acted pretty quick. Once Twitter got involved, Disney was like, they announced it like that. I think the same thing, especially with Chadwick. I think well, I know he was a beloved member of the Disney family. Bob Iger loved him, and he was in one of the most popular franchises of all time with Black Panther. I think that I think they're definitely going to do something for it for his movie to pay tribute to him, whether that be an attraction at DCA or a whole land in Florida.
And as we were talking before, when you said that there's still some extra land as far as the parking lot right beside Cars Land, where there would have been an extension for Avengers Campus, they could actually put like a Black Panther attraction there, because I believe it's on one of the posters. I think it's the one for Disneyland. You know, like how there's 3 posters for like the intertwining, like at Hong Kong, California.
Oh yeah.
That I think Black Panther is shown in the Disneyland portion of those posters. So, I mean, they could potentially put a Black Panther attraction intertwined if they wanted to expand Avengers Campus. Now, as far as like Walt Disney World, I think to actually build a whole Wakanda and Animal Kingdom, that would be more appropriate.
That would be, yeah, I agree. Because I think, now, can Disney World do it? Are they allowed to use Black Panther, or is that something that they're tied?
See, that one I don't know. I would have to still read like the clause, like with the copyright and the contract. I don't know if Black Panther is part of that banner that can't be in Walt Disney World. Like obviously Spider-Man, the X-Men,
Hulk.
The Hulk, yeah, they can't. I'm not sure if Black Panther is part of that. I'm wondering if Black Panther is part, like with the Guardians.
Right,
I don't
maybe.
even know where Doctor Strange. I think even Doctor Strange can't be in Florida.
Yeah, that whole Universal deal is
Yeah,
really.
I just really wish it's
no idea.
so confusing. I mean, I just wish that Universal would just relinquish the full rights to Disney just completely and be done with it.
I do too. I think it creates a mess. They can keep the Simpsons, but I think they just relinquish the Marvel rights and call it a day. They can't do anything with it anyway, because Disney's not going to grant them permission to build a new ride. They're not going to. It's going to sit there, and it's going to stagnate.
It's get outdated, yeah. So I think in the process, I think it will eventually happen that way. And as you said, with The Simpsons, even though Disney owns the Fox rights, it does better as far as like on the streaming service with Disney Plus. But to incorporate The Simpsons in the Disney parks, it fits much better in Universal.
much better. Yeah, much better. Yeah, I can't picture them in Disney parks. Maybe in the Hollywood stuff, like Hollywood Studios or Hollywood Land, maybe in there. But even that would be weird.
Yeah. I think like if they were to do it like done in the very, very far future, yeah, as like in Hollywood Studios or something, but that would be it. Like I can't foresee them taking selfies with people in front of Cinderella Castle.
Yeah, that would be really weird. Bizarre.
Yeah, definitely. But I thank you for joining me today. It was a great conversation. I love how we kind of went off topic there for a little bit, talking about Mulan and Black Panther and everything. That's the thing with me. If I get in any conversation with Disney, like I could just jump back and forth from different topics.
Oh yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love that. I like to keep, when these conversations are always more fun when you're able to kind of go where it takes you.
Absolutely, so. Yeah. So I definitely thank you for joining me. Where can the listeners and viewers find you?
Well, thank you for having me, George. I do appreciate it. And you can find me on YouTube, OrangeGrove55. I make roughly about 2 videos a week on Disney parks, the films, everything Disney Plus. So check me out on YouTube. And again, George, thank you so much for having me, brother.
Thanks. You're always welcome on my channel anytime. And I love having a good Disney conversation with you. It's awesome.
Yes.
And on that note, remember, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Bye, everybody.